Welcome back, everyone, to AHSAA TV Weekly. I am joined now by Director of Communications from the Alabama High School Athletic Association, Ron Ingram, and we're ready to get right into the brackets. Welcome, Ron.
Glad to be here, Susan.
Well, let's hit it. Second round. We're in the books.
Well,
let's talk about the third round.
Third round is right on us, and from this round, we'll be in the semifinals next week, which is a week later than last year because we always seem to play them on Thanksgiving. But the way our season starts, the first Monday of each August, we started the last day possible. So this year, these kids will have a chance to have a little bit more of a Thanksgiving, probably not have to practice.
Well, that's good. Okay, well, let's get right into Class 1A in the South. We've got Leroy at Brantley.
Leroy, as we mentioned before we started, Leroy is on, there are 5 schools playing this week that are still on U.S. Highway 43.
Wow.
And they call that Champions Road over there, 43.
For good reason.
And Leroy is further south. They're 11-0, and they're going to be hosting Brantley. They're going to be going to Brantley. Brantley was a 3rd seed. Their quarterback, Jaden Parks, got hurt in the 3rd game of the season. And they didn't think he'd come back, but he got to come back 2 weeks ago. And last week he accounted for both touchdowns, and they upset Lochapoka, undefeated Lochapoka, 14-12.
Okay, then we move on to Elba at Maplesville.
Wow, another situation there where we had maybe possibly an upset. Maplesville went to Sweetwater, which is almost considered on Highway 43, and beat them 28-21. Elba, again, they're averaging almost 55 points a game.
Wow.
Alvin Henderson had another big night, had a few more carries this time. But Elba, though, is on the road at Maplesville, and that's not that's. To be a state champion, in 1A, a lot of schools have said it has to go through Maplesville sooner or later.
Has to. Okay, staying in 1A, but in the North, Hackleburg at Coosa Christian.
Hackleburg, they had a big win last week, and they're playing Coosa Christian. Their record is 7-5, but their record is a little better than that on the field. Coosa Christian is playing really, really well. They had a big win over Lynn, 28-6. And Hackleburg just steady. Hackleburg's another team that's been there that's around this round almost every year. Wadley, they're on the road. They go to Pickens County.
That's right.
Not surprised, even though Pickens County was a 3rd seed. They're 9-3. They've been in the state finals, I think, 4 of the last 6 years.
Wow.
In 1A, Wadley had 62 points at the half last week and posted 81 in a second-round playoff game.
My goodness.
Pretty unbelievable. Wadley's got some speed. So Wadley's at Pickens County. It's a very tough match for both teams because of speed versus speed.
Okay, all right, let's move on up to 2A in the South. B.B. Comer at Clark County.
You know, B.B. Comer was playing Highland home in a game that we said was like a state championship game for both. And it was extremely strong defensive battle. B.B. Comer came out ahead, I think, 21-14. Now, they're going to go on the road for the first time this year in the playoffs. They go to Clark County. Record is 7-5, play a very difficult schedule. Clark County was state champions in 2022. B.B. Comer was in the finals in 2023. That's going to be a pretty exciting game. The Clark County team won their game, stopping Goshen on the 4-yard line in the last minute of the game.
Wow.
With the final score 22-15.
Well, a lot of undefeated teams in 2A. Reeltown, another one, going to Cottonwood.
But Reeltown had a big win. They're going on the road for the first time at 11-0. Cottonwood beat Isabella 24-23.
Wow.
Cottonwood and Reeltown have played several times in the playoffs. One year, the game was decided back in the mid-'80s. It was decided in a rainstorm on a 2-0 game where the ball was knocked over the quarterback's head, and Cottonwood got beat 2-0 in that game.
Oh, my goodness.
There's been a lot of rivalry going for a long time in 2A playoffs. They've met several times, and both teams are really good football teams.
Okay, moving to the north in 2A, Tuscaloosa Academy at Pisgah.
Tuscaloosa Academy has the state's leading passer in Lancaster, and they're going to Pisgah, who's averaging over 50 points a game. It's a pretty good haul from Tuscaloosa over to Jackson County up near Scottsboro, where Pisgah's located, way up on a hill.
Glad you told me.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't sure.
You don't want to be on that hill if it's snowing because you've got to come down the hill to get off.
Get down.
And then Locust Fork, who's averaging 53.7 points a game, they're going to play Fife High School, which is traditionally the best defensive football team in 2A. Wow, 2 great matchups there, but I don't expect to see Locust Fork get their average, but if they can get into the 30s, they've got a chance maybe. Fife scored 50, I think 55 last week.
Goodness, that's a lot of teams that like to score points.
Oh, it is.
All right, move up to 3A in the South. Mobile Christian at Trinity Presbyterian.
Mobile Christian's undefeated. They played their first 2 games at home. Now they're on the road at Trinity Presbyterian, who played 1 game at home, then 1 on the road. They're the home team because of travel. Trinity has really played well in the playoffs. They're going to have to play well again because Mobile Christian, a lot of folks, particularly in South Alabama, say that may be the team to beat this year.
Okay, and St. James at Thomasville.
St. James, what can we say about them and their quarterback, KJ Jackson? They scored on the first offensive play of the game last week. And I was listening to it on the radio, and the announcer said, we have a surprise when we get the ball back. I think we're going to score. And the other announcer said, well, what's the play? He says, well, I'm not going to tell you.
Oh.
And sure enough, when they got the ball, they ran a flea flicker. The quarterback, Jackson, pitched the ball to another player who pitched it back to him, and the receiver was wide open in the end zone for a touchdown.
My goodness, and defending state champions there, so that'll be a good matchup. Okay, moving to the north, Geraldine at Lauderdale County.
Geraldine, my mother's name was Geraldine, so you have a little special place in your heart for them. They're going to Lauderdale County. They're 11-1, and they beat Fife High School this year.
Wow.
They only have 1 loss, but Lauderdale County is undefeated, and they beat Piedmont last week on the road 35-30, which was a really tough battle to win. They're coming back home to Rogersville over near Florence. That could be one of the best games of the week.
Okay, Sylvania at Madison Academy.
Madison Academy, undefeated, 12-0. They played Mars Hill Bible. They won their game, I think, with 14 seconds left with a great defensive play on the down inside the 5. They won their game 20-14 or 21-14 as well. Sylvania had a big win. They put up a lot of points on the season, and that's I think this game will be much more high scoring than last week's game was. But winning on the road at this level gets harder and harder.
Well, and I'm looking here in 3A. I mean, it looks like about 6 losses in this entire bracket.
I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses. 6, 7 losses.
These teams are used to winning, so this is going to be exciting. All right, moving on to 4A in the South, Jackson at BT Washington.
Yeah. Well, this is really a great matchup. First off, Jackson knocked off Andalusia, the defending state champion, last week. They didn't knock them off. They won 31-7. They were probably favored going into the game. They have a great quarterback who's going on to Division I college, and he played like it last week. BT Washington is 8-4. They were a 3 seed in their region, in Region 2. They knocked off Handley last week, but they beat them soundly 22-9. This is a game where BT Washington is a home team. First time they've ever hosted a second-round game, I do believe. Jackson does not need to come in looking at the 4 losses. They better come in looking at the last 4 or 5 wins. And if so, this could be another great game to watch. BT Washington, though, they're set and ready to show people they're there to stay. But Jackson has been there a long time.
All right, Montgomery Catholic at Jacksonville.
Montgomery Catholic gave up 14 points. I mean, they've only given up 31 all year. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But they're going to Jacksonville. Jacksonville has a great offense, a great quarterback. They can score 45 at any time. Montgomery Catholic can score 45 as well, but they've probably not given up 45 points all season.
Wow. Okay, and in the north, Westminster Christian at Brooks.
Westminster Christian this game could probably be, it could be 100-99. Westminster Christian last year set a state record by getting beat in a game 70-69.
Oh my goodness.
This year they beat that same team that in that game last year 82-72, and the new record was set by the other team. Brooks has scored as many as 80 points this year. This would be wild. They better have good light bulbs in the scoreboard up there.
I guess so.
Both teams have great quarterbacks, have great offenses. It'll be wild. It'll probably be one of the latest games finished, too.
Okay, Cherokee County at West Morgan.
Cherokee County was in the state finals last year, and they're averaging about 46, 47 points a game. They're going to play West Morgan, who is averaging 53 points a game. And last week, they were held to their low of the season when they beat Corner 35-12.
My goodness, these teams like to score points.
Well, they do.
Okay, moving on to 5A in the South, Gulf Shores at Headland.
Gulf Shores had they're the number 1 seed from Region 1, and they took on, in their game last week, they really had no trouble in winning. We thought it would be tougher with Charles Henderson, who was in the finals last year. They won 41-0. Headland knocked off UMS Wright, which was a big surprise.
Yes.
They've won 5 playoff games in school history, and 2 of them they've won this year.
Oh, that's great.
But Headland is the real deal. They beat UMS Wright 35-21, and they're at home again. Can they come down off of that high and be ready for Gulf Shores? This potentially could be as tough a football game as we'll have in the state. Both teams have great defenses. I look for that. It could be a real battle.
Okay, Eufaula at Demopolis.
Eufaula goes to Demopolis. Eufaula had a big win, not much trouble in their game last week, but Demopolis won 13-6 over BC Rain, and they had to do it with a big defensive play late in the game, and that was the game that Lance Tucker, the quarterback at Demopolis, the coach at Demopolis, he quarterbacked in a state championship game. He helped coach his dad in a state championship game. He quarterbacked at Alabama, and he also he coached Fayette County to the state finals. But he said about that game, he says, this was as great a high school football game as you'd ever want to see. He mentioned BC Rain. He said those coaches did an outstanding job, and those players played their hearts out. We just made one more play.
One more play, and that's all it takes. Okay, Ramsey at Moody.
Ramsey at Moody. Ramsey's the defending state champion. Moody had an incredible game last week, beating Russellville. I tuned into some of that on the network, and there was one period midway in the third quarter. It was 21-14, and Moody caught a punt at the 50-yard line, ran it back for a touchdown. But they were called for roughing the kicker, running into the kicker. So they kicked it again. This time they blocked the kick and fell on in the end zone for a touchdown.
Oh my goodness!
And went on to win. That was the turning point of that game, and they beat Russellville. Ramsey's defending state champions, and they're playing like it.
A lot of heart. Okay, Pleasant Grove at Gunnersville.
Pleasant Grove has been in the state finals. Not last year; they reached the semifinals, but the 2 years prior they were in the finals. They lost one championship game by 1 point. They're an incredible team. Gunnersville is an incredible team. Pleasant Grove's experience, it doesn't make much difference where they play. Gunnersville has been very solid all year long, but both teams cannot afford to have a letdown here because it will probably be a much tighter game than some.
Okay, moving on up to 6A in the South, we've got Hillcrest Tuscaloosa at Saraland.
Oh, don't tune into that game. No, you don't want to see 2 undefeated Class 6A teams, each 12-0.
Wow.
Hillcrest is probably the best defensive team in 6A. Saraland can score. They're averaging. They've scored, I think, 643 points this season already.
My goodness.
And that was most of their starters on the sidelines. I believe the last statistic I saw, the starters have scored touchdowns on 79 of 84 drives this year. If Hillcrest can find a way to slow that Spartans defending state champions down, this will be a whale of a game. That's one that I will be tuning into on Friday night.
I guess so. All right, Pike Road at Benjamin Russell.
Pike Road handled Spanish Fort last week, 31-17, a pretty good, really good game. They're 10-2 and very solid, kind of quietly solid this year.
Right.
But defensively, they've been very good every week. Benjamin Russell last week, their quarterback, had a career high over 400 yards passing.
Wow.
It's at Benjamin Russell. Benjamin Russell has a great crowd. It's going to be pretty special. It's special for AHSAA too because the field at Alexander City is called Martin Savarese Field, and one of our executive directors was Steve Savarese, but he coached at Benjamin Russell.
Well, he may be in attendance. Okay, in the North in 6A, Gadsden City at Parker.
Gadsden City, I saw them earlier this year, and I saw them last year late in the season, and I felt they had all it could take that you need to be a state champion to at least get there, and I think they still do. I think they are showing it now, but let me tell you, Parker does too. And this game is going to be at Parker. It's going to be interesting. Gadsden City needs to bring all the folks in Gadsden to that game.
They do, because
it's going to be a real tough, great athletic football game.
Okay, and another undefeated matchup: Clay Chalkville at Muscle Shoals.
Oh, no need to watch that one either. Right? These are 2 great defensive teams, great offensive teams. They're not giving up many points. Clay had a tough 17-13 win last week over Mountain Brook. They needed that kind of tough game. Muscle Shoals struggled a little bit to start with it, then won their game. Muscle Shoals is the host. They've been here before. They've not gotten past this. They got a really tough job to get past Clay Chalkville, but so does Clay. This will be one of the best games to watch.
Best game. Okay, we'll move up to 7A, but Ron, let's tell the viewers, because there are fewer schools in 7A, 7A is basically a week ahead. They have a week shorter playoff system, so this is actually the semifinals for 7A.
Yeah. Most of our other classes have approximately 60 to 62 teams competing in football. In 7A, we just have half that. We have 32.
Right.
And so we have 4 teams of 8. Officially, I think it's 7 and 1 and 9 in the other based on the location. But what we've now have is semifinals this week. They play 4 rounds, and then they skip the week, and then they open the Super 7 on December 6th.
That's right.
In the night game. And I want to mention before we talk about these games too, before then we're going to have a doubleheader in flag football.
Yes, we will.
And those pairings have been set, and we're looking forward to that down. But here we start off with Mary Montgomery in the semifinals at Central Phoenix City. Central is just, everybody says they're the team to beat. They've been said it all year. Mary Montgomery may have something to say about that. They won for the first time in the second round last week. They're 12-0. They were down 10-3 and came back and scored a touchdown and then kicked 2 field goals in the last 3 minutes. The last one with 3 seconds left.
Oh my goodness. Okay, last game we're going to discuss today is 7A, Hewitt-Trustful at Thompson.
This is a rematch. Thompson won the first match. It was a hard game. They won the rematch. Hewitt is playing the best they've played in years. Quarterback, the coach's son is the quarterback. Josh, the quarterback is just incredible. The quarterback at Thompson's incredible. The 2 defenses are incredible. I think this game is going to be one of the best we've probably had in 7A.
Maybe
ever.
so. That might look like a college game. All right, well, Ron, that brings us to the end of the matchups for the 3rd round. Thank you so much for your insight and wisdom about all these games, and we'll be watching them and looking forward to some good football.
And we just urge people to get out and buy a ticket and go watch this week. And if you can't, get onto the NFHS network or watch our game of the week here with WOTM and just watch football.
Watch football. All right, well, we'll be right back after this on AHSAA TV Weekly.